week that Guildford Flames are joining the Elite League to make it up to 12 teams, which means that the conferences and or the scrapping of them and or the structure of the league is up in the air at the moment and hasn't been decided. Obviously there was a rumour going about Twitter last night that Sheffield and Belfast would be joining the Gardner Conference, and the two new teams would obviously make up the numbers in the other conference. That is purely a conjecture and a rumour at the moment. What we're going to talk about individually and then collectively is what we think is a good move forward for the league and what we would like to see and why we'd like to see it. I've certainly got my firm ideas and having thought about it, and my main reason behind wanting to see this is probably because we've all talked about the Big Four and how we'd like to see some sort of salary cap. My worry has been surrounding maybe the teams. I think Coventry have suffered big time over not being able to compete in the Earhart Conference with the Big Four. I think the likes of Edinburgh have always had their problems, but they're doing a bit better this year. Dundee and Fife have had years where they've been up there. Fife could certainly do a bit better if they get a bit of luck, get some good quality imports in, and maybe start changing that and getting a few top quality Brits in. But I just don't want to see a situation come around where we are like the Scottish Premier League, which is one team that can win it at the moment. I know that's taking it to an extreme. At the moment, we really have realistically 4 teams that can win the league in any given year. And we can't get a salary cap because it's just not going to be workable. So the conferences, to me, are a way of alleviating that. Braehead certainly had a year where we were close to winning the league, probably brought about by the advent of the conference system. Dundee had the year they won the conference and could have run it close. You've got teams, like I said, like Fife in a good year. If we have the sort of conference system I'm looking at, Manchester are getting better every year. If they have a breakout year, if Coventry have a breakout year, not forgetting, we've spoken about Guildford and Milton Keynes in the past and how they could both hit the ground running. My idea essentially is to keep 3 conferences of 4, with the Scottish Conference being Braehead, Dundee, Edinburgh and Fife. A Southern Conference, and this is where it gets to the EIHL geography of the conferences we have just now, of Coventry, Guildford, Milton Keynes and Manchester, and a Central Conference, if you like, of the Big Four, Belfast, Cardiff, Nottingham and Sheffield. Now, to me, the way that would work is I would be changing the Challenge Cup. You'd have 8 games against your conferences, which would be 24 games. You'd have 8 games against non-conference teams, which would be another 32 games. So you're playing your conference 8 times, your non-conference 4 times, which gives you a total of 56 games. At the moment, the league season's 52 games. But with the change I would make to the Challenge Cup, I would have 4 groups of 3. And we kind of spoke about this on our WhatsApp. And my idea initially was to have Dundee, Edinburgh, Fife, Belfast, Braehead, Manchester, Coventry, Nottingham, Sheffield, Cardiff, Guildford, Milton Keynes. And we did speak about just having a completely random draw for a Challenge Cup for 4 groups of 3, which would probably be really exciting for the fans. I think the drawback for that would be the travelling aspect. But take that whichever way that it would be possible to do it. I would just have the winners of each group going through, and you would have, you would go straight to a semi-final, a 2-legged semi-final and a final, which would give you a total of 63 games if you went to the Challenge Cup final. And if you went to the playoff final, having played maybe 2 or 3 game quarter final, hopefully, I'm hoping we can bring in the best of 3 at some point soon. So you would either have 66 or 67, or 65, 66 games, and then a playoff final would be 67. The amount of games isn't really changing, and to go all the way, if you were going to win the treble, there's only 1 or 2 games of a difference, depending if they bring in a 3-game sort of quarter final. To me, it's going to cut down on the travelling. It's going to keep, we always heard that, teams like Fife, Edinburgh, Dundee, they didn't like the thought of, the southern teams coming in and playing them so many times. It's going to cut that down. It's also going to cut down, I know, Graham, your problem has always been the conferences itself. At the moment, we play 32 conference games and 20 non-conference. If you change it to this way I'm talking about, you're actually reducing the conference games down to 24. and you'd have 32 non-conference games. So, although I'm kind of saying it's my way of kind of financially doping, and making things a bit equaler, it kind of doesn't really work out as much as that, because you're reducing the number of conference games, but I think it still keeps it interesting, because you then have actually more non-conference games than conference games, the way it all works out. What's everybody's thoughts and their own feelings on what they think we should be looking at?
Well, I certainly like it better than the proposed 2/6. I think we should give this. I think we should give a free structure conference a go. And this is the thing we were talking about as well. Once you get 12 teams and upwards, the flexibility on formatting that you can change, tweak, or try, it becomes just so many more options become available, and we'll get into the other ones a little bit later. So, yeah, something like that sounds pretty good to me. The ideas I've got in mind's a bit of a variant on that, but similar, having the three conferences of four.
I just think the Challenge Cup for me, Graham, is a dead duck, and if you can reduce that down to, if you had like 4 groups of 3 for the Challenge Cup with just the winner going through, you're only talking about playing 4 Challenge Cup group games, and it's less games for a competition people don't really give much about unless you actually get to the final.
It's got to be secondary. You come up with your whatever league system you're going to have first of all, and then you basically just have to mould the Challenge Cup around it. That fixture meeting could potentially be an absolute massive headache, even more than it normally is. But if you have a certain amount of degree over, you have obviously the outline of how the Challenge Cup's going to work, but you have a degree of flexibility over it, and it's a secondary consideration, then yeah, that's fine. Your idea is okay. I don't have any particular problem with it. Yes, my problem has always been about the fact that all the teams don't play each other the same number of times, and that will always be my problem with any system that comes up. If that is indeed the case, that you're not playing the same number, that you're not playing every team the same number of times, because however you cut it up, you're always going to have this kind of situation where potentially the ice is tilted one way or the other, and blah blah blah. Anyway, I like the idea of the fact that there's more non-same conference games, which is fine. I haven't looked at it too closely. I don't know quite how that works out then on the travel side of things. Because
you've still only got 2 away games against each of your non-conference teams.
Yeah, but you've got more non-conference teams.
You've got 8 non-conference teams, but you're still only having to go to Guildford twice, Milton Keynes twice, Cardiff twice. I mean, they're the most far-flung ones.
Yeah, for me, the trick is, a lot of it depends on how you cut it up. I mean, if you go with Braehead, Fife, Edinburgh, Dundee conference, which is an obvious standalone, if you look at Manchester, Nottingham, Belfast, Sheffield, and then Cardiff, Coventry, Guildford, Milton Keynes, which is probably the easiest way I see of divvying it all up, then that Cardiff conference is probably going to be an obvious result pretty much every single season.
The way things stand just now, Cardiff would win the league every year.
You've got Nottingham.
That's why I'm trying to put the big 4 together to negate that and give Braehead, Fife, Dundee, Coventry, Guildford, Manchester, Milton Keynes, if they have a good season, a chance to be right up. What was the season we were up there and challenging for the league was probably the most exciting season that we've had, is it not? The problem I have with what they talked about with putting Sheffield and Belfast in our conference is you've got 2 of the big 4 in the conference and you've got 2 of the other big 4 in the other conference. Now, if things go according to plan, and I think that was muted as everybody was playing each other 3 times, you really literally are already you're setting it up so that, what have realistically Edinburgh got to play for? Because if there's only going to be 4 teams out of 6, they're going to have an exceptional season just to get into the playoffs. I'm trying to maybe even it up a wee bit by keeping the big 4 all together.
Well, as I say, I don't see a scenario whereby whatever we've heard, I can't see Nottingham and Sheffield splitting up for a start.
No,
I mean, irrespective of votes, democracy, how these things are democratically worked out, I cannot believe in a million Sundays that there's going to be some kind of split between Nottingham and Sheffield, because it just won't happen. Those games that they have are far too important to both clubs. So yeah, if you group all the top teams together, for the want of another phrase, and then you group, Coventry, Guildford, Milton Keynes, and Manchester together. Yeah, I mean, it gives them a season.
It gives them
possibilities.
Each conference is pretty competitive.
Yeah, it is. Well, within itself, yes,
Within itself.
absolutely. It's how much value the actual conference titles bring with them. Does the conference title bring with it any additional benefits? For instance,
this is what we spoke about, and Ray had a pretty good idea when we were talking about it on the chat. Respect the conferences, and as far as the playoffs go, the top two in each conference plus the best two losers overall, the best two record would be the 8 teams going through. So, if you were Fife or Braehead, finishing second in the conference would still get you into the playoffs.
Yeah.
And you would kind of ignore the kind of overall league as such and respect the conferences.
The problem that you have then is you've got potentially 2 of the top teams in the league bailing out.
Realistically, Realistically, though, what we spoke about, you would probably have one of the big 4 missing out. Yeah. Give them something to play for. If they're in a 14 conference, they probably know they only have to finish third to get the next stage to get through to the playoffs. Yeah, so what?
Yeah, I can see merits in it. I mean, again, you know what my views are in terms of the conference system. My whole beef is I just want every team to play each other the equal amount of times. You can have any conference system you want. The reality is that that's not going to happen. The
problem I've got with that system is, unless you find a way to level the playing field via a salary cap or something similar, you're going to have Groundhog Day every season.
Yeah, and you're never going to have a salary cap because it's been tried before, and
that's
they were working the angle straight away.
That's why I don't agree with everybody just playing each other in like a league. That's why if we can't find a way to bring everybody together, why would Edinburgh? I always bring Edinburgh in because Edinburgh tend to finish at the bottom of the table, give or take a place or two. What have Edinburgh got to play for? At least under this system, Edinburgh have a breakout year, and you just never know. You just never know. They could maybe winning the league might be just a step too far. I mean, we've proved we just can't do it. But if any of those other 8 teams in another conference have a breakout year, dominate their conference, dominate the other conference, have good results against the big 4 teams, they've got a chance of going really far. But under a system where everybody plays each other with no other kind of level playing field, that will never happen for them. And that's where I would think we might lose as a league, as a total league, we might lose fans. Jennifer, you've been dead quiet.
No, I know. I'm just listening. For me, personally, I think 3 conferences of 4 probably makes it a bit too complicated. So I'm actually on the side of the 2 versus 2 times 6. But what you then have to look at, I quite like the conferences the way that they are, but you then have to decide which one of the conferences joins the Northern Conference, so as to speak. And for me, it would be Belfast. And I think you would probably find that there would probably be a lot of resistance from Belfast.
Well, Belfast and who, though?
Conference. So Belfast and Manchester would be the 2 northern teams. Geographically, that kind of makes more sense. And I think you would...
Then you'll get the other 3 of the big 4 saying Belfast will just win the league every year.
Well, that's Belfast's priority, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? That's what needs to get discussed. But I do think I do kind of feel just now the way the conference set up, it is kind of a bit repetitive, seeing the same team 4 times at home and 4 times away. So I would like to see a reduction in like intra-conference. But I think outside your conference to 2 and 2, I think is probably the best way. So I think you'll see a reduction to 3 games inside your conference. You only see them an extra once. If it's 3 and 3 inside your conference and 2 and 2 outside your conference, it's 56 games for your league. And I hate the Challenge Cup. It's loaded rubbish. It's nonsense. Get rid of it and make the playoff series a little bit longer.
I don't think they'll get rid of the Challenge Cup. I don't think it's going to go away. But I think what we'd have to do is just reduce the number of games, because let's face it, 8 games each team's got to play to get rid of 1 team in each conference or each group. It's just ridiculous.
Well, I've got an idea for that.
When you go? Well,
my structure is basically the same as Ross's. 4 teams in 3 conferences. Possibly the Storm and Devils swapping. I'll probably keep the big 4 together ultimately. I would do 3 and 3 for your own conference. So that would be 50 league games, because you'd play the other conferences 2 and 2. I would have, as you mentioned, the top 2 of each conference qualify for the playoffs, and then the 2 best non-qualifiers in the league would qualify as a wild card. And for the playoff quarterfinals, I would either have a mini round robin or a 3-game mini series. And if we go for the 3-game mini series, then the lower seed must host the first game, or at least the second one if that's not logistically possible. And then you'll have your Final Four weekend as normal. For the Challenge Cup, I'm the same as some of the others here. I personally scrap it, but I'm going to